All of the following videos were made by Cosmo is Well on TikTok, all on the topic of the Quell drama.
People are taking the whole Dandy's World situation way too far. Quell stepped down as lead of Dandy's World. She was also a victim of Rox. She was manipulated by someone she believed was her friend, built a successful game with him, and when she realized who he really was, she removed him from the project. That probably wasn't something that could happen overnight either. If the game was making money, there were likely legal and business matters that had to be handled carefully. I don't blame her for taking the time to do it properly. Quell attacked victims. I've gone through a ton of documents and screenshots trying to find proof of this, and I genuinely haven't found any. If there's valid criticism to be made, I think it's that she could have handled parts of the situation more professionally and not let emotions get in the way. But she's also 20 years old and was suddenly dealing with a situation that most people never have to navigate. That's probably part of why she brought on a legal team structure in the first place. Quell sued victims. She didn't. Her legal team sent cease and desist letters. A cease and desist is not a lawsuit. It's essentially a formal notice saying, stop making statements we believe are harmful, or we may pursue legal action. Quell has also said that her legal team sent those letters and that she told them not to continue doing so. She took too long to respond. Please remember she's still a person. Imagine having thousands of people attacking you at once. Rumors spreading every day. People making things up, your team getting harassed, and moderators getting doxxed. I'd probably need time to step back too. Rushing out an emotional response would have likely made things even worse. Can I play the game now? This question honestly annoys me. Instead of deciding for yourself, you are asking random strangers on the internet to make the decision for you. You do have free will, by the way. If you want to play the game, play it. If you don't, then don't. What you shouldn't do is harass people for playing a Roblox game. The victims have expressed this as well. Going after people, especially children, for playing a Roblox game isn't helping anyone. It just makes you part of the problem. I'm going to be posting a series of videos taking a deeper look at the Dandy's World situation. My goal isn't to stir up more drama, it's to look at the claims being made, separate fact from misinformation, and provide the context that I think has been missing from a lot of the discussion. Quell overworked a cancer patient. Before I talk about this, I want to point out that the person in these screenshots, Joji, if I'm not mistaken, uses its it and himself pronouns. From the screenshots I've seen, this claim doesn't really hold up. Joji appears to be upset with Quell, accusing her of distancing herself after someone's cancer diagnosis. Quell responds by saying she was never told about the diagnosis, that she feels like she's constantly being villainized, and that she no longer wants to continue the friendship. She then paid him 6 months worth of pay. Personally, I don't think her response was unreasonable. She wasn't insulting, hostile, or trying to attack him. To me, it reads like a very human response from someone who felt they were being unfairly blamed. Obviously, none of us know everything that happened behind the scenes. I'm only judging based on the screenshots that have been shared publicly. Based on those alone, I don't see evidence that Quell overworked a cancer patient. If anything, it looks more like a friendship that had broken down long before this conversation. From the context that's been made public, it honestly looks to me like Joji and Void are upset that Quell no longer wanted to work with them or continue being friends with them. Based on what I've seen so far, it comes across more like a smear campaign than evidence of the claims people are making. Of course, if new verifiable information comes out, I'm open to changing my opinion, but with what's currently available, that's the conclusion I've reached. In this video, we are going to talk about Void, one of the people publicly calling out Quell. In this screenshot, Void says they no longer wants to be friends with Quell because of how Quell treated Joji. However, based on the screenshots we looked at in my previous video, I don't think that's an accurate characterization. From what was publicly shown, Joji was the one being openly hostile toward Quell. Quell responded by saying she no longer wanted to continue the friendship and even paid him 6 months worth of pay before cutting ties. I've yet to see screenshots showing Quell being cruel or abusive in that interaction. Most of the claims I've seen rely on hearsay rather than direct evidence. Another thing I find strange is that Void appears to be in contact with Rox, the person at the center of all of this. From what I've seen, Void is using information from Rox to build a case against Quell. That's honestly a bizarre position to take. If the criticism is that Quell was friends with Rox before learning who he really was, then wouldn't that same standard apply to everyone else who was also friends with him at the time? From my understanding, Void and Joji also knew Rox before everything came to light. Quell was manipulated by Rox too. She was a victim of his manipulation just like others were. So why does it seem like everyone is willing to recognize everyone else's victimhood, but not hers? Quell was allegedly harmed by someone who was much older than her. When I first read Quell's statement about what happened to her, I assumed she was talking about Rox. However, after looking into the details, it appears the person being referred to may have been Void. Void is one of the people publicly calling out Quell. Void is 29 years old, and based on the ages being discussed, He would have been in his mid-20s when Quell was around 15. That age gap and the circumstances surrounding their relationship are extremely concerning. What I find especially concerning is that someone who may have been involved in Quell's past in a harmful way is also one of the people currently speaking out against her. Quell was also manipulated by Rox. She wasn't someone who knowingly supported everything he did. She was someone who was also affected by his actions. And Void, who was also in his mid-20s at the time, believed Rox too. He even said, "I genuinely believed in Rox when he told me that his past decisions were just him being a stupid teen making mistakes, and that he changed and evolved as a person." So how can we fault Quell for mishandling the Rox situation when a close friend of hers, who was an adult in his 20s, who met her when she was 15 and he was 25, believed Rox's explanation too? Why does that seem to receive so much less scrutiny? So my question is, why are some people willing to acknowledge that others can be victims of manipulation, but refuse to consider that Quell may have been one too? Void allegedly harmed Quell, and instead of asking why a 25-year-old man was in contact with a 14 or 15-year-old girl, the conversation has turned into attacking Quell over claims that do not have definitive proof behind them. I think it's important to look at the full context. If someone was in a position to influence or manipulate Quell when she was young, then that deserves serious attention too. It shouldn't be ignored simply because she is now the person being criticized. I am honestly really disturbed after realizing that Joji and other people who have spoken out as victims are reportedly working directly with someone who Quell has alleged harmed her, and who is also connected with Rox. I think this raises a lot of questions about how people are choosing to handle this situation. If we are going to take claims of harm seriously, then we need to apply that same standard consistently and consider all sides involved. Do not attack anyone mentioned in this video. One of the people involved with the Dandy's World situation created a new document. This doc has some of the most evidence I've seen out of all the documents so far. However, a victim asked for it to be taken down because it contained screenshots they did not consent to being shared. I will be talking about things mentioned in the document, but I will not be sharing screenshots with anyone's usernames out of respect. I still think it's important to talk about. One of the victims explains that Duck Adam's video was biased against Quell, and that Adam was literally around 11 years old when the Rox situation started. The victim also felt uncomfortable with how often Adam would complain about Quell and speculate about new information involving her. They also felt as though Adam was practically cyberstalking them before eventually adding them as a friend. To me, this feels like a blatant attempt to contact someone because you believe they will agree with you, so you can gather more information to use against Quell. Big allegedly here. This victim also alleges that Adam had something to do with Quell being doxxed. Adam is still a child. I believe he is 16 now, if I'm not mistaken, so please do not attack this person, regardless of what he may have done. The document goes on to show a lot of evidence regarding Blush Crunch and some of the Rox victims allegedly being targeted by an internet group. We are talking about death threats, assault threats, doxing, and more. Whatever your opinions are on this situation, please do not harass, threaten, or attempt to dox anyone mentioned in this video. Quell is not a bad person, but Quell underpaid her workers. There is zero proof of this that I've seen. If this is true, then there should be actual evidence. Things like pay stubs, messages of employees asking Quell for raises, or Quell refusing to pay them properly. A YouTuber named Poco claims to have spoken with a Blush Crunch employee who said that the workers were paid industry standard rates and also received large bonuses. Quell sued a victim. No, she didn't. The Blush Crunch legal team sent out a cease and desist. A cease and desist is basically a formal warning telling someone to stop doing something, such as making statements the company believes are false or harmful, before they consider taking further legal action. A cease and desist is not a lawsuit. Nobody is being sued simply because they received one. Quell did not personally send this. It was sent by the legal team for Blush Crunch, whose job is to protect the company and its interests. Quell also said in her latest statement that she told the legal team not to send things like that going forward because she never intended to silence a victim. Quell overworked a cancer patient. There is no evidence I've seen that proves this. The main piece of evidence being shown is a screenshot from Joji, where Joji is being very rude to Quell about why she hadn't sent condolences to someone they both knew who had been diagnosed with cancer. Quell says directly in the screenshot that she didn't know about the diagnosis, and that she doesn't appreciate Joji constantly viewing her as a bad person. As a matter of fact, in every screenshot I've personally seen of Quell speaking, she has been incredibly kind and respectful. But I digress. The point is, if we are going to make serious accusations about someone, there should be actual evidence behind those accusations. Well, if she stepped down, that must mean she knows she did something wrong. I don't believe that's the case. In my opinion, I think Quell stepped down for her own mental health. People were relentlessly attacking her, spreading claims about her, and making things up constantly. She's reportedly received unlived threats, been doxxed, and had an incredible amount of attention directed toward her. At some point, stepping away from the situation situation may simply have been the healthiest thing she could do. She also may have stepped down to protect the other people on her team from being targeted in the same way. Stepping down doesn't automatically mean someone is admitting they did something wrong. Sometimes it just means they're exhausted and don't want to keep putting themselves or the people around them through it. Her only crime was trusting someone she considered a friend for too long, something she has already addressed and apologized for in the past. Void, a former Blush Crunch worker and a nearly 30-year-old man, befriended Quell when she was 15, while he was 25. When the Rox situation happened, Void was 25 and Quell was still a minor. Along with other mutuals, they chose to believe that Rox had simply made mistakes and changed. It wasn't until later that they realized how bad Rox actually was. Void then worked with Duck Adam and Joji, people who all have their own reasons to dislike Quell, to put together what I believe became a smear campaign against her. In my opinion, Void needs to be looked at more closely. What is a nearly 30-year-old man doing still communicating with Rox, someone accused of predatory behavior? What is a nearly 30-year-old man doing communicating with Duck Adam, who is still a minor? I believe Quell may have been manipulated and harmed by Void, and honestly, it's possible that some of these other people may have been manipulated by him too. Void deleted his Twitter during the height of these allegations. Maybe he wanted to get away from the situation. Maybe he was stressed. I don't know, but what I do know is that I find it extremely concerning that a 29-year-old man was forming these kinds of relationships with people who are still children. In this video, I want to specifically address the claim that Quell was a bad boss who didn't properly pay her employees. To do that, I'm going to show you a Reddit post from someone who'd been a Blush Crunch employee, where they talk about their experience working there. From this point forward, I'm going to let the employees speak for themselves. I just want this information to be more widely known and give people another perspective to consider. A clarifying post about Blush Crunch from a current employee. Hi everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Aaron and I'm the Director of Consumer Goods at Blush Crunch. My team and I are responsible for all of the Dandy's World plush and figures that have come out from our wonderful manufacturer partners. I joined the studio in March of this year and I've been lurking in this subreddit since then, but I wanted to make a post clarifying a few misconceptions about the studio, especially at such a sensitive time. Now, while I am a director, I'm not an executive at the company nor am I a company man. This post is not coming from corporate and frankly, I may ruffle feathers doing this. I've always tried to be someone who serves the fanbase for the brands that I've worked on and this is no different. People deserve as much transparency as possible and there are a lot of misconceptions going around. Please understand that anything pertaining to legal matters and matters of the past era and management of the studio I can't talk about, nor am I a part of. The Blush Crunch legal team has made it very clear that this is for everyone's safety and, as someone who has worked on major IPS before, it's pretty normal. With that said though, I will say this because it's the most important thing above all else. The team at Blush Crunch cares tremendously about the Dandy's World fanbase. Even before the current situation started, we would always talk about what we could do to make the community happier, more excited, and safe. Now that conversation is more relevant than ever and our mission remains the same. Our hearts are with everyone who has been negatively affected by what happened in the past and what's happening now. Full stop. So let's talk about Blush Crunch. Most of the Blush Crunch team was hired in 2025-2026 when the studio truly became a studio and not a passion project for a small group. There are managers and leads over entire parts of the business, most of whom have years of industry experience and are known to be trustworthy leaders. Yes, it's true that over 100 people work on Dandy's World, but there are not 100 employees. That would make it a fairly large studio and we are just not there yet. It takes a lot of talented folks to help make Dandy's World though. There are dozens of moderators, numerous contractors who work on the music, the toys, and more. It's important to know that everything made for Dandy's World is made by a team and sometimes with external partners. The bottom line, every toy, UX update, trinket, lore video etc. is made by multiple people months in advance based on a schedule. No content is reactive. I want to share how profits work at Blush Crunch because it's frankly unlike anywhere else that I've ever worked. Legally I can't go into hyper specifics, but I can share the following. Every dollar made by the game and the merch either goes to the employees or is invested directly into the company in a clear way. Every employee is paid the industry standard with generous EOI bonuses. As someone who works with external vendors, I generally pay them industry standards or their preferred rates. I've worked for some big companies before and I've always had to negotiate down to skimp on budget. I love that I can pay artists fairly here. Now, if people don't want to buy anything pertaining to Dandy's World, that's 100% up to them. Like with any fandom, people should be free to participate however they feel, so long as they're doing so respectfully and comfortably. But don't get it twisted that the money is all or even mostly going to one person. It's not true. The culture at Blush Crunch is extremely encouraging. Everyone seems to believe in Dandy's World and folks are allowed to do more than just their normal job if they want. For instance, I'm also doing things like writing for lore videos and animated content. I'm very excited for folks to see more of what I've worked on, but I did get to help on Tisha's latest lore video and the Shelly and Finn animation. Many know this, but it bears repeating. Blushcrunch has an extremely firm anti-AI stance. It's one of the things that lead me to join the studio. Generative AI has no place and never will have any place in Dandy's world. We are and will always be an artist-first studio. I hope that this post has cleared a few things up for many of you. I have faith that in time, a proper resolution for what happened in the past will come. In the future, I'm going to try and be more active on here and everywhere else so I can celebrate my team's work. It's genuinely such a privilege and a joy to be a fan of Dandy's world while actively working on it. In the future and when it's safe for them, I'd also love to start crediting the amazing artists and designers who help make our products because artists always deserve credit for their work. Until then. Aaron. This video is going to be a bit of a sensitive one. I will be talking about one of the victims of Rox, but I will not be showing their name. In a recent post, they said, "We're giving her up until the 20th for her to apologize to us. I'm aware she's currently taking a break for now, which is fine. We're giving her time to recover as much as she can." I find this incredibly strange. Giving someone a deadline to apologize is not really a good way to get a genuine apology. If you're telling someone, "You have until this date to apologize to us," you're putting pressure on them to say something because they have to, rather than because they genuinely understand what they did wrong and want to take accountability. And honestly, the way it's worded almost feels like a threat. You're giving someone a deadline, and if they don't apologize by that deadline, what happens? If someone is already taking a break because they're overwhelmed, giving them a deadline to come back and apologize adds even more pressure to an already stressful situation. Quell has already made a public apology directed toward the victims and addressed her involvement in the situation. She has taken accountability for the things she believes she could have handled better. She also doesn't owe anyone a private apology simply because they demand one, especially when we need to remember that Quell was a victim of Rox too. She was manipulated by someone she trusted, just like other people were. If you genuinely want an apology from someone, shouldn't the goal be for them to actually reflect on what happened and come to that apology on their own? An apology given because someone was given a deadline isn't necessarily going to be sincere. It could just be someone saying whatever they need to say to make the pressure stop. And honestly, if the goal is accountability, forcing someone to apologize on your timeline seems completely counterproductive. You guys are probably not going to like this video, and I am sorry, but I genuinely don't understand what Quell has to privately apologize for. The people speaking out are victims of Rox, not victims of Quell. Quell was also a victim of Rox. She was manipulated by someone she trusted and believed was her friend. She was young, she was inexperienced, and she was being influenced by someone she trusted. She eventually realized that Rox was not the person she thought he was and took steps to remove him from the game. Quell has also publicly addressed and apologized for the Rox situation multiple times. She has acknowledged the things she believes she could have handled differently and has taken accountability for those mistakes. I think it's important to remember that Quell can be both someone who made mistakes and someone who was genuinely manipulated and harmed by Rox. So when people talk about the victims of Rox, I don't understand why Quell's victimhood is completely left out of that conversation, or why she is still being expected to privately apologize to people who were victims of Rox rather than victims of her. And honestly, I find it really strange that so much of this drama seems to be focused on Quell instead of Rox, the person who actually caused the situation in the first place. I obviously can't say for certain why that's happening, but to me, the way Quell is being singled out feels like it may be rooted in misogyny. It's especially frustrating to see a young woman being scrutinized over every mistake she made, while the person who manipulated her seems to receive far less of that same energy. If we are going to talk about victims and accountability, then I think we need to apply that standard consistently to everyone involved.
That's all for now. Goodbye.